today. I need to start by taking a poke at our political masters for holding their election on this and not any of any other 364 days of the year they could have chosen. I won't speak for John because he bats to the other side. I've been worried that no one would come here today because you'd all be at home packing for your nuclear fallout shelters to survive the next 3 years. So you can guess what side I bat for. Thank you for being here to celebrate the end of a very long journey, and one that marks two very clear milestones. John Rynn started his writing life at 14 years of age by publishing a book of poems called Sit Down and Think. I'm told it sold quite well, but it's taken until his 50-something year to achieve this long cherished goal of publishing the first book of prose, which he feigns to call a memoir, which I think is a really highly creative interpretation of reality. I suppose I can't talk. I decided to become a writer at the age of 17, and this is the very first publication I hesitate to say that has my name on it. And yes, I'm of an age where it's impolite to ask my age. I'd like to start out by thanking those people who agreed to let us publish their names, or the names of their dearest departed loved ones who appear in the book. I think it's far more interesting reading about real people when that's the reason we bought the book in the first place. Thank you to those who didn't or couldn't agree to use names. We understand. We pray that you like the fictitious names that we've invented for you. Now, before John cuts the ribbon and sends his book down the slipway, it's my role as part of the creative team we've become to tell the backstory. I know I dropped the J-bomb before, so sorry, but this time I'm going to drop the Q-bomb. Hi there.
I'm better you with.
Oh, okay. Yeah, do that. Love to speak. A few people who've been on journeys have also been on quests. My apologies if you're squirming, but if you're not, I'll be really mercifully short. Just a little over 7 years ago, two guys sat down to unearth a rare treasure that one of them knew lay buried deep inside his memories of childhood. For the entirety of his life, he cherished the idea of crafting his early life into something that would inspire and give solace to others. In fact, I think that he felt the telling of this story was perhaps the most important act of his life. He believed that locked up inside his early life story was a key that would unlock the hearts and minds of people who are afflicted, not just by disability, but by the shocks all our lives are heir to. As a quest, this one had quite a few of the classic ingredients. It had a hero, a plucky, resilient little boy who, maybe like the Buddha as a young person, was taken back at the sight of so much affliction in the world. So as he grew up, he started to write poetry to try and make sense of it. Somewhere into early manhood, he came to the conclusion that everyone has a disability. It might be cerebral palsy, but it could also be a carping, demeaning attitude. It might be autism or Down syndrome, or it could be negative self-talk, that very widespread affliction that not only holds most of us back from fullness of life, but in some cases stops us in our tracks. These feelings were a mystery to our hero because he was born into a noble family who firmly believed that locked up within every life is actually a higher purpose. Bob Rynn, John's dad, said to me that John's disability was a gift from God, and that it was up to the Rynns, as a family, to find how God wanted them, or wanted him, to use it. There was no way that the Rynn family was ever going to have John locked away in the back room watching TV for the rest of his life. Indeed, they would see to it that he would enjoy the kind of life of a person without a disability. For the early 1960s, this was quite a vision. With the NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, or whatever they're currently calling it, hopefully still on the horizon, we'll see at the end of the day, I guess, Society is only just beginning to come to grips with these ideas. In any quest story, there are allies and mentors, people who have to, who help the hero face his tests and his enemies. In John Rynn's life, there was a never-ending stream of friends and care workers who, over the years, have all found themselves strangely compelled to help John paint his pictures, write his stories, attend his conferences, sit with him on those committees, and help him speak by sitting right next to him and helping and reading off his letterboard. As co-writer of this book, it became very clear to me that I was just another link in a very long chain of people who discovered it was their fate to help John express himself. And what a privilege. I think there are many of us here today who would sympathise with Lauren Daniels, the senior editor of IP Press, who said after editing the manuscript, I won't do the Boston accent, I was really tempted, but under the stress I don't think I will. I'm realising I'm just one in a long line of lovely ladies who have helped John Rynn do what he wants to do next. Lauren, I don't have to be a lady to realise exactly how you feel. In any quest, there's usually an ordeal. I know that John's had his fair share of these. So let's see. Full-blown, non-verbal, athetoid, spastic quadriplegia with limited use of one hand to communicate, for example. Now that's an ordeal. But what about his long-standing patterns of hospitalisations from severe respiratory infections, leading usually to pneumonia, which once, when coupled with a failure in his care system, created a perfect storm that nearly cost him his life. But if you're a prose writer and you have multi-level communication impairments, your ordeal is how to get your creative vision out of your brain and into your computer. Most of you know how John communicates. He taps out a few words on his letterboard, then he looks up at you. And before you know it, your brain is finishing the sentence for him. We all finish people's sentences for them. And this is kind of sweet because even if they're not saying it very well, we know what they mean. So I think John took in this very human habit of ours for completing sentences and thought, hey, I know how I'm going to write my book. Now all I need is a nice person to come along with a bit of time on his hand. Come along and it'll be a snack. And a long snack. What John just loves is to start a sentence off, and while his listener is finishing it, he just likes to sit back and supervise. Is it any surprise he voted you?
You went about 5 pounds. We agreed on that the other day.
Did you know? You did well. Such a young shaker. As I would complete a sentence, and that's how the book is written, as I would complete a sentence, John would be hovering over the first letter of the first word of the next sentence. And in doing so, he presided over every word in this book. And so John's ordeal became my ordeal as we puzzled and fussed over how we're going to turn his 30 pages of very badly spelled diary of his life into the blockbuster that John knew was just hiding somewhere in there. In the quest journey, there may be ordeals, but there also have to be rewards. What I remember are loud, unrestrained chuckles as a non-verbal person took to verballing his past and gleefully turning it into something for his own amusement. The fact that memory often failed and we had to use our imaginations to recreate the past often meant that many of the facts of that time got done over in a way that would make any self-respecting historian blush. But that's what a memoir is. It's a creative reinterpretation of reality. You have no idea how much boyish delight both John and I took in rebuilding and remanning the Rynn family billy-cart and sending it caterwauling down Bowen's Livingston Street yet again. Perhaps the most rewarding moment for me, though, and one that I won't forget, was watching John go through all the emotions that a human being is capable of. as we brought to the surface and relived the story of John's older brother Jeff's accident. John told me that turning that event into a story meant he could at last honour all the love that Jeff had lavished on his little disabled brother as they grew from being boys into men. It occurred to me that it was probably the first time in 35 years, since his brother and his girlfriend Laurie Bartram set out for Townsville that day, that John could properly pay his respects. I think, John, you can be quite proud of that chapter, because not only is it then the biggest story of beauty and depth, I think it stands on its own as a testament to the virtue of brotherly love. I have to say, thankfully, that the rewards have not been all spiritual. The most earthy and wonderfully encouraging reward was the response from the publishers. All John and I ever expected to happen was that John would pay for the publication of a couple of 100 copies, and then he would go into the world and flog his book out of his backpack, probably in brown paper packages, to friends, to people at conferences, to any unsuspecting passerby, and to the poor shop owners in Wynnum who weren't able to leave their shops. But as you know, this wasn't to be. I took a call from Lauren Daniels, our manuscript assessor, that literally had me sitting down. I had to find somewhere to sit. You have to realise the significance of this. Would-be authors usually don't take calls from their would-be publishers. It's usually all done by email. I have to quote what Lauren said. John, I'll leave it there. I have to tell you that I wait for years for a memoir like this to come along. You did exactly what I asked you to do in the previous assessment, but you guys have taken it to another level. You guys have actually nailed it. I guffawed, I looked at my shoes. Like Kevin had these last couple of weeks, I was just perfectly incoherent.
I'm getting going.
For writers, this was the equivalent of looking at the line of numbers on your TV screen, looking at the line of numbers on your TV screen, and then down at the lotto ticket to find that match. John and I rode through the whole of December last year on a crest of joy. John wheeled around his unit, tapping it out over and again on his letterboard. I'm in a dream. I'm in a dream. And then we took another call. Hey, you guys, said Lauren. I just cornered Dave Ryder at a party and I twisted his ear. And you'll be proud of me because he's agreed to publish your book for free. And so we actually achieved what we set out to do in 2005. We could believe that finally this project that we've been struggling over for so many years was actually worth it. But there was another surprise to come. IP asked us to make some minor changes to the text so audiences from overseas could read and enjoy it. We didn't expect that. I looked at John and John looked at me, and both of our mouths dropped open. There was more than a reasonable chance that we were going to make a buck. Now that's something that our friend here really understands. So, to end, this is how two men who as individuals couldn't find the wherewithal to do the very thing they'd been put on this earth to do, individually, had come out together on the other side of their ordeal as published authors. I would like to offer a very big thank you to the team at Interactive Publications, to Lauren, to David, to Anna, to TJ, for their sheer expertise and skill in helping this life story, turning this life story into a beautiful book that John always knew was in there somewhere. I would now like to thank all John's friends for being here today, all John's many teachers, carers and facilitators over the years, and we've been far too many to even think about mentioning. I would like to thank our families who have helped us in your own unique ways to bring us to this quite unique moment. We pray that the readers find the inspiration and fun John has packed away inside this book, just waiting to be discovered. I'd now like to hand over to John. It's all that fear when you turn on a computer on that it's not going to do what you want it to do.
Now, my little book, it's time for you to go out in the world. Yes, my boy, it was a long gestation, but don't be embarrassed. It's much better than going off hard-cocked. Yes, I know, God made the world in 7 days, not 70 years, but I did have a handicap. You can be certain that when I write the sequel, we won't be hiring him again. My next assistant must either be blonde and beautiful or brunette. Yes, redheads are very sweet too. So, little one, now that you're all grown up, what do you think you might do when you get out in the world? Oh, that's lovely. You want to inspire others to have a good life, no matter what happens to them. Good boy. And what else? Oh, really? You want everyone to realize that they have a disability, even if it's only a lack of confidence. Gosh, that's a big ask. Well, my book, that will never be your problem. You are such a chip off the old block. Actually, I thought your big message was that no one should ever say can't. Never say can't. Has a nice ring to it. You could even sell that line to President Obama. John Corrigan has written him a letter telling him that by the time his second presidency is over, there will be a leadership position available for him in Australia. Never say can't. If anybody says to me, you can't do anything, I just do it, and I don't care what they think. If I had listened to them, my little book, you would never have existed. What's that? You want to go overseas? Oh, I know Uncle David wants to take you overseas because he wants you to make a lot of money so you can retire. I'm not sure you should go. You are young and impressionable, and I wouldn't like you to fall in with any bad books or start speaking in a funny accent. As we get ready to crack a bottle and over your bow, I think you need to have the last word. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is an excerpt from my book. It is said on the occasion of my 21st birthday and my father is speaking. He is launching me into life, just as I'm launching my book today. Clearing his throat, Dad tapped the table ceremoniously and waited for silence. Good people of Bowen, thank you for coming on this special day of our son's 21st birthday. We all know John and I wish it was easier to say the things I have to say, but when it comes to talking about a character like his, these things are never easy. Dad shook his head and wouldn't look at me, but everyone knew what he was up to. I couldn't wish, he said. I could say he was a good boy, but I can't. I wish I could say he was a well-bred fine fellow, but I can't. I wish I could say that it looks like he'll become a great sportsman, or a great fisherman, or an actor, or politician, or a truck driver, but I can't. So, I suppose what I should say is the truth. Dad looked at me and paused. Everybody cheered and looked mightily relieved, but the speech seemed to be going somewhere. The truth is, he said, that God has blessed me with a son, of whom I am deeply proud. There was a roar of approval. As you may have heard, he shares the same birthday as Charles Dickens, and that is why he is a poet and an artist, and has already done things I have only dreamed of. But I have to admit to you, shamefaced, that he is also a comedian, and Would you believe it? A businessman. How many 21-year-olds have you met who can crack cheap one-liners with the best of them and have started out their lives with a share portfolio and an understanding of the stock exchange? He stared at them poker-faced. I could tell he was begging for some cheap rebuff. Not the most promising of beginnings, but then, how many people do you know who have published a book of poems before they turned 16? It was a big cake and I blew out the red trimmed white wax 2-in-1 that had been purchased specially from the news agency up on Herbert Street. Dan picked up a long bladed knife and taking my hand in his, wrapped my fingers around it. We pushed the long blade deep into the soft mango icing together. There was an enormous cheer, and with that, the 15 people who remained all stood up and belted out, for he's a jolly good fellow, as Mum deftly diced the cake into portions onto their plates. It didn't matter what special moments my life might have held me, because here I was, right inside one of the richest. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has ever been part of my life. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and that you are all feeling comfortable and relaxed about the election result tonight. John Corrigan says there is nothing to fear. Just close your eyes and let Tony get on with the job. Bible will do wonders for your spiritual life too. Step right up, and I'll even sign it for you.
That was interesting.